Hi, this instructional video is made so you can get a better understanding of the project type Light Visual Enhancement. I'm Lasse Petersen and I am the COO of KnowMore. In this video I will talk about what you're expected to deliver when you're on a light visual enhancement project. I'll talk about the difference between light and heavy visual enhancements. Then I'll go through a checklist which you can use on all the light visual enhancement projects to make sure that you will get a high quality rating. Then I'll take you through some examples so that you can get a better idea of how to handle these projects. And lastly, I will go through a list of frequently asked questions that we are often getting on these kind of projects. Visual enhancement means adjusting the client's input to the correct template, add visual elements to support the content and the message of the slide, potentially adjust the structure of the slide to improve the visual appearance. It does, however, not mean to provide standard formatting or fit to page. If you're unfamiliar with these two types of assignments, then please go to the study section and watch the related videos. Lastly, visual enhancements are not randomly adding icons and pictures with no relevance to the content. Light visual enhancements means that you should potentially add relevant icons or shadow to the slide. And note that I say potentially. It means that this is not something you should do every time, but sometimes it will be appropriate to do it. It also means that you should keep the existing structure of the slide, and that means that the placement of the existing content should be the same. You should add supporting pictures that take up a minor part of the slide while adding a white gradient to it. You should make sure that the font size are the same on all slides. And lastly, you should only have one version of the input. Heavy visual enhancements are different from light visual enhancements in a number of ways. But first and foremost, it's important to note that heavy visual enhancements include all the same elements as light visual enhancements. It just also includes additional elements. In heavy visual enhancements, you should potentially remake the structure of the slide. Instead of adding minor pictures to the slide, you could now add a full background picture to the slide. You could potentially work with different font sizes, but this is something you should be careful about. Heavy visual enhancements require that you create multiple versions of the slide. The additional slide should not just be the same slide with slightly different colors, it should be a totally new version of the slide. It is important to note that heavy visual enhancements are a much more creative process than light visual enhancements. If you haven't seen the video about Scandinavian design principles, then I strongly advise you to go through the practice session and study it. Okay, let's go through the checklist. Always make sure that the standard guidelines are followed. Again, if you do not know these guidelines, then please go through the material in the practice sections. Be aware if you have made changes to the overall message of the slide. This is always a no-go and must be corrected. Does the colors you have applied fulfill the need of the template, or have you used colors that are outside the template? Also make sure to check whether the spacing of the elements are good. If the elements are crammed up together, this can be a problem. If you're unsure about how to create a nice amount of spacing between elements, then check out the video on Scandinavian design principles in the study section. Take some time to consider what the message of the slide is and what the slide is supposed to tell the audience. Then ask yourself whether these changes are taking the focus away from the message or whether they are enhancing it. Look at the style that has been applied across the slide deck. Are the style consistent, or are there some slides that need to be changed in order to fit the overall style of the document? Here's an example of a standard agenda slide. This slide could really use a lift up with some light visual enhancements. Notice that the specialist has kept the structure of the slide as it is. Then he have added some visual elements in the bottom left corner with a white gradient. And notice that the white gradient makes sure that the picture does not take too much attention away from the overall message of the slide. Also, colors has been added to the most important elements to make sure that they stand out a little bit. Lastly, a very light shadow has been added, so it does not take away additional information from the slide. This next slide shows another example how light visual enhancement could be applied to the same agenda slide. Here 3 supporting icons has been added to the content and a minor shadow has been applied, so the content are still in focus and the message is very clear. I think this is a very good slide. Here's an example of a market entry strategy that needs some light visual enhancements. Just like the previous example, this slide is very basic, so let's see how it can be improved. The texts have all been formatted in the same font size and the content have been expanded to the whole slide. By applying a contrast to the right side, the additional attention has been drawn to the right side. The arrows have been replaced with less normal arrows. And lastly, a light shadow has been applied to the right side element to make sure that additional emphasis have been put on this side. Here's another example. This slide could surely use a little bit of visual enhancement. A light box has been put around the 4 areas, and then arrows have been added to show the connectivity between the 4 boxes. And then a slight dashed gray line has been added between all the sections in each of the 4 elements. Okay, let's look at the last example. Again, we have a very boring slide that are not very visual appealing. So let's look at the result that the specialist has provided. So some icons and boxes has been applied around and inside the 4 elements to make it look better. Also, the elements has been filled out with the client's color. And then the stability has actually been made into a lid on top of the 4 elements. So they almost comprise a building. Let's look at some frequently asked questions. So, can I delete existing icons or pictures? Or do I have to reuse them? Well, it really depends on the situation. If the existing icons or pictures are not rendered in high quality, then you should not use those. Also, if they do not support the message of the element, then they should not be used. What if I do not have any good idea of the visual enhancements? If the content can be understood in 2 different ways, then please create a solution for each and leave a yellow sticker which indicates the alternative. If you're lost and do not know what to do, then please leave a comment for the admin. Where do I get icons and pictures from? For pictures, you can use unsplash.com. They have a Creative Commons 0 licensing, and therefore we can use their pictures commercially. That was it for this video. Enjoy your future projects.